Chapter 1. Welcome to Native American Folklore. Please keep your limbs inside the vehicle. If you've ever wondered what North America looked like before Europeans showed up and started aggressively inventing new ways to misunderstand everything, let me paint a picture for you. Imagine a continent covered in endless forests, sprawling plains, mountains that look like they were designed by someone who didn't believe in straight lines, and animals that genuinely seemed capable of unionizing if they felt like it. Now, imagine trying to survive in this landscape without Wi-Fi, electricity, or the emotional support of a caffeinated beverage. You'd quickly develop stories too. Stories about what lurks in the trees, what watches from the cliffs, and which creatures consider humans a light afternoon snack. That, in its simplest form, is Native American folklore, the oldest do not enter sign collection in existence. But unlike European folklore, which mostly focuses on tipsy fairies, passive-aggressive dwarves, and witches living in calorie-rich candy real estate, Native American legends are rooted in survival, environmental respect, and the unspoken rule that nature doesn't care about your main character energy. These stories weren't just bedtime tales. They were the operating manual for living in a continent where the weather could kill you, the animals could kill you, and several spiritual entities had you on their could kill you list just for existing. So let's take a deep breath, sharpen our emotional support walking stick, and step into a world where trickster gods steal the show, monsters enforce moral codes more effectively than modern law enforcement, and every shadow in the woods might be a lesson, a warning, or something that wants to wear your skin like a festive holiday poncho. Welcome to Chapter 1. The creation before the creation. Yes, that makes sense. Different Native American nations tell different creation stories, but if you zoom out far enough, they all share one universal theme. Humans were not the main event. In fact, humans were barely the post-credits scene. In many traditions, animals, spirits, or gods existed first, and handled things surprisingly well until humans showed up like underprepared interns on their first day. The Haudenosaunee, Iroquois, for example, tell a story in which the world begins when Sky Woman, pregnant in mid-fall, because gravity has no chill, drops from the heavens onto a cosmic ocean. The animals, who, again, had everything under control until she plummeted into their workspace, cooperated to create land for her to land on. A muskrat dove so deep into the primordial waters that he basically invented underwater labor unions just to bring up a tiny bit of soil. That soil was placed on the back of a giant turtle, who quietly accepted that he was now responsible for holding up an entire planet, because complaining wasn't yet culturally invented. Thus, the world. Born from teamwork, perseverance, and one very stressed-out amphibian. Other cultures tell of the earth being formed from mud, water, wind, or the leftovers of celestial creatures, because nothing screams cosmic efficiency like recycling gods. The point is, nature existed first. Humans were the rookies. And everything else, from mountains to storms to the raccoon who keeps knocking over your trash can, had a spirit, a purpose, and a story. The spirit world. Not a place you want to visit without a chaperone in Western folklore. Spirits usually fall into two categories. Grandma's ghost trying to return her casserole recipe, demons who just want you to stop touching the cursed object. But in Native American folklore, the spirit world is everything. A layered, interwoven network of realms, entities, energies, and beings with personalities ranging from wise mentor to chaos goblin to should probably be avoided unless you have offerings and life insurance. These spirits weren't abstract concepts. They interacted with humans, shaped destinies, taught lessons, or created catastrophes that modern insurance companies would label as acts of God, while quietly increasing your premium. There were sky spirits, river spirits, hunt spirits, mountain guardians, underworld creatures, dream entities, tricksters, healers, destroyers, and that one spirit your cousin swears he saw behind the shed at night. And each nation had its own beautifully detailed cosmology. For example, the Navajo, Diné, describe a universe structured into multiple worlds stacked like cosmic apartment floors, each one hosting beings who had very strong opinions about human behavior. The Lakota Sioux saw spirits everywhere, from the wind to the stars, forming a living network of meaning. The Hopi believed in a universe governed by Kachinas, masked spirits who handled everything from weather patterns to moral education to the occasional ceremonial dance-off. But don't get too comfortable. Because for every wise guardian spirit, there was also a deeply unhinged creature lurking nearby whose entire job description was ruin someone's week. The monsters arrive because humans needed motivation. Here's where things get interesting, and by interesting, I mean the part where you realize ancient people genuinely lived in hard mode. Native American folklore is full of terrifying entities, but they weren't random horror monsters. They symbolized warnings, natural dangers, moral lessons, social rules, and sometimes consequences of doing something catastrophically stupid. In other words, every monster was basically a spiritual Yelp review for bad behavior. Take the Wendigo, or the Skinwalkers, or the Uktena, Thunderbird, underwater panthers, and dozens of regional creatures that acted like nature's personalized stop misbehaving notifications. But we'll get deeper into the horrors in later chapters. For now, just know that humans behaved better when the local folklore included entities capable of eating them. Motivation. The cultural significance. Where folklore actually means something unlike modern folklore, where we get things like Mothman, who mostly stands near bridges and minds his own business. Native American stories served actual societal roles, teaching children survival rules, explaining natural phenomena, reinforcing community morals, preserving cosmology and history, maintaining balance with nature. These tales weren't nonsense. They were philosophy wrapped in metaphors, wrapped in humor, wrapped in existential dread, wrapped in environmental awareness. Think of them as the earliest TED Talks, except far more entertaining and delivered by elders who could out-storytell most modern influencers into the dirt. Chapter 2. The Tricksters. Chaos with a moral compass, sort of. If Chapter 1 introduced you to the vast cosmology of Native American folklore, Chapter 2 introduces you to the characters who looked at all that carefully structured spiritual order and said, needs more entropy. Behold, the Tricksters. Nature's way of saying, sure, lessons are important, but what if we also made them entertaining? Every culture has trickster figures. Loki, Hermes, Anansi. But Native American tricksters are special because they manage to be cosmic teachers, chaotic gremlins, irresponsible cousins, spiritual life coaches, and walking HR violations, all at the same time. Let's explore the chaos. Coyote. The original agent of chaos. If the universe has a clown prince, it's Coyote. Almost every Native American nation in the western half of the continent has some version of him. A shape-shifting, loud-mouthed, overly confident disaster generator whose life choices build entire moral systems simply by showcasing what not to do. To understand Coyote stories, imagine someone who has the confidence of a man who has never lost an argument, the intelligence of someone who has never won, the survival skills of a creature that should not logically still be alive, and the moral compass of a rogue GPS that keeps recalculating mid-cliff. Coyote's narratives go something like this. Scenario: a coyote sees something shiny, right pointing arrow. Coyote wants shiny thing, right pointing arrow. Coyote steals shiny thing, right pointing arrow. Shiny thing belongs to supernatural entity, right pointing arrow. Supernatural entity is offended, right pointing arrow. Coyote accidentally invents thunderstorms. Scenario B: Coyote tries to outsmart someone, right pointing arrow. Coyote fails spectacularly, right pointing arrow. Coyote blames everyone except himself, right pointing arrow. Coyote runs away, right pointing arrow. Coyote somehow ends up buried, bitten, burned, flattened, or spiritually roasted. Scenario C: Coyote tries to flirt with a woman, right pointing arrow. Everything goes catastrophically wrong, right pointing arrow. A geographical landmark now exists because of it. Seriously. There are mountain ranges whose origin stories essentially boil down to Coyote was being stupid again. But here's the thing. As idiotic as he can be, Coyote is also a creator, a teacher, and a bringer of knowledge, often by stealing things the universe didn't want humans to have, like fire, singing, dancing, sex, or the ability to make bad decisions. He is the ultimate reminder that wisdom often comes from mistakes. And Coyote makes so many mistakes that he is basically the Titanic of spiritual beings. Raven. The cosmic hacker with wings. If Coyote is chaos incarnate, Raven is chaos with intent. Found heavily in the Pacific Northwest, Tlingit, Haida, Coast Salish, and others. Raven is a master shapeshifter, a clever manipulator, and the spiritual embodiment of I wonder what would happen if I pressed this button. Raven's greatest hits include stealing the sun because the world was too dark, tricking a sky chief by slipping into a baby form and crying 24 hours a day until his parents gave him what he wanted, creating the tides because he was bored, releasing humans from a clamshell because he needed someone to laugh at. Raven is clever. Raven is witty. Raven is the person at a party who convinces you to try something you absolutely shouldn't, and then watches from a distance with a smirk when it goes wrong. But unlike Coyote, Raven is more strategic chaos. He alters the world intentionally, like a cosmic software engineer who occasionally crashes the system just to see how fast it reboots. His stories teach wit, creativity, respect for nature, and the dangers of underestimating someone who looks like an ordinary bird. Because in folklore, ordinary birds are never just ordinary birds. They are undercover bosses with feathers. Nana Bojo, the original multi-tool of mythology from Ojibwe and Algonquin cultures. We have Nanabajo, also spelled Nanabushu, Wenabajo, etc. Arguably the most flexible trickster figure in North America. Nanabajo can be a rabbit, a mon, a spiritual hero, a disaster magnate, a moral teacher, a cosmic contractor, and a guy who did a little bit of everything. He's the reason we have the seasons, the shape of the land, certain animals, specific weather patterns, moral teachings that double as comedy sketches. Nanabajo stories read like a blend of stand-up comedy, divine intervention, improv theater, and a spiritual TED talk delivered by someone who forgot their notes. One story explains how Nanabajo defeated a giant fish-like monster by tricking it into eating him whole, only to carve his way out from the inside like a divine sushi roll. Another tale describes him turning into a rabbit to escape danger, because apparently rabbits are the folklore equivalent of a stealth mode. Nanabajo is both wise and foolish, both powerful and clumsy. He's the hero who saves the day by tripping into the solution. The spirit of the trickster. Why they matter. Tricksters aren't villains. They're not heroes either. They're the living embodiment of curiosity, unpredictability, consequence, humor, balance between order and chaos. They teach lessons in the most memorable way possible. Not by preaching, but by doing something so chaotic you never forget the moral again. Instead of saying, "Don't lie," a trickster story says, Nanabajo lied, then fell into a frozen river, got chased by a thunder spirit, and turned into a rabbit to escape. Don't be like Nanabajo. Instead of saying, "Respect nature," a story says, Coyote disrespected the water spirits and woke up inside a river canyon that definitely wasn't there yesterday. These tales are unforgettable precisely because they're entertaining. Their morality wrapped in absurdity. Education disguised as cosmic slapstick. And that is why tricksters endure. Because chaos makes the lesson stick. Chapter 3. The Great Beasts. Creatures that would ruin your day and possibly your zip code. Welcome to Chapter 3, where we finally meet the creatures that made Native American children, and frankly, adults, go to bed on time, stay out of the woods after dark, and treat nature with the same respect you'd give a sleeping bear armed with legal representation. These legendary beings were not just spooky bedtime decorations. They were living metaphors, environmental warnings, and sometimes excuses elders used when they didn't feel like explaining a mountain lion attack in detail. This chapter is dedicated to the great beasts. The colossal, the terrifying, the spiritually powerful entities who wandered the landscape long before you could Google, "What animal tracks are these?" and spiral into panic. Let's open the bestiary. The Wendigo, the original, "Don't eat your friends." PSA before we start, let's clarify something. Wendigo legends are from Algonquin-speaking cultures, particularly the Ojibwe, Cree, and Innu. This creature is not the Hollywood deer skull forest cryptid you've seen in movies. The real folklore version is much more psychological, horrifying, and, believe it or not, practical. In its original form, the Wendigo is a gigantic, emaciated humanoid with hunger so powerful it becomes a spiritual force made from cannibalism, greed, and winter desperation, symbolizing the dangers of losing one's humanity. So basically, what happens when survival, starvation, and moral collapse form a committee? But here's the kicker. The Wendigo grows larger every time it eats. Which means the more it consumes, the hungrier it gets. This is the only monster whose business model is exponential misery. The legend served a powerful purpose. In brutal northern winters, food was scarce, hunting failed, often starvation warped people's minds. The Wendigo story wasn't just supernatural horror. It was a moral enforcement mechanism, a reminder that even in the darkest months, you don't betray your community. Imagine being snowed in with your family. Everyone's hungry. Your cousin is eyeing you like you're a rotisserie chicken. Somewhere in the back of your mind you hear Grandma whisper, "Remember? Wendigo. Instant appetite suppressant." The Thunderbird, the sky's largest unpaid intern. If you think modern weather apps are unreliable, just know that ancient North America had something even better: Thunderbirds. Thunderbirds are huge, legendary birds found in the folklore of numerous tribes: Ojibwe, Lakota, Menominee, Algonquin, Salish, and more. They are the possessors of unimaginable power, the creators of thunder, the hurlers of lightning, giant, angry sky guardians, basically nature's version of "I said don't touch that." In most stories, the Thunderbird's job is to keep balance in the world. A noble calling. A spiritual duty. But also, a full-time, unpaid internship. Whenever some massive, malevolent force began causing trouble, like underwater panthers, serpent monsters, or morally bankrupt humans, the Thunderbird was expected to clock in and fix it. Storm? Thunderbird. Lightning? Thunderbird. Your house gets flattened because you insulted a spirit last week? Thunderbird, but honestly, you deserved that one. Native cultures viewed them not just as monsters, but as divine protectors. Birds of justice. Warriors of the sky. And enormous. Some stories describe them large enough to pick up whales. Others say their wingspan could blot out the sun. Translation: if you ever saw one, you'd stop worrying about taxes forever. The Uktena, the serpent who clearly needed a hobby. From Cherokee tradition comes Uktena, a colossal horned serpent with a crystalline gemstone embedded in its forehead. Which raises a lot of questions. For example, how did a snake get jewelry? How did it put it on? Does it have a jeweler? Is there a cursed reptile accessories industry we don't know about? Anyway, the Uktena is said to be as thick as a tree trunk, long enough to circle a mountain, venomous enough to ruin your whole village, radiating supernatural power, extremely difficult to kill, and aggressively unbothered by your existence unless you annoyed. The gemstone, called the Ulunsuati, was believed to bring extraordinary power, luck, or knowledge to anyone who obtained it. Which sounds great until you discover that you need to get it from Uktena. Uktena has never supported this plan. Uktena can kill you in 17 different ways. Uktena absolutely will. These legends weren't just monsters for fun. They taught respect for dangerous places, awareness of venomous creatures, the importance of humility, and the risks of chasing power you don't understand, because if a local elder tells you, "Don't go into that cave, a giant horned serpent lives there," you listen. You do not say, "But what if I poke it with a stick?" The underwater panther, nature's no swimming sign. Midwestern and Great Lakes nations, Ojibwe, Cree, Anishinaabe, Menominee, tell of Mishipeshu, also known as the underwater panther. And if the name sounds confusing, trust me, the creature is worse. Imagine a panther but aquatic, with scales and horns and the personality of a territorial crocodile with anxiety issues. Mishipeshu lives in deep lakes and rivers, notably Lake Superior, which is already terrifying on its own. The underwater panther just makes it worse. Its role? To guard powerful water areas. And also to drown anyone who disrespects the water. This was not just a monster story, this was the original water safety briefing. Because those waters were extremely cold, extremely deep, extremely dangerous, and extremely unwilling to care about your canoeing skills, so elders told stories. Don't disrespect the lake. Don't paddle carelessly. Don't taunt the spirits. And if a teenager rolled his eyes and said, "Whatever, Grandpa," Mishi Peshu would handle the rest. The stone giants. Proof that some creatures just want to fight. Across many northeastern nations, Haudenosaunee, Abenaki, and others, you find stories of the stone giants or stone code beings. These giant humanoid beings are outrageously tall, covered in armor like stone plates, basically living tanks, and loudly uninterested in diplomacy. Their entire existence revolves around hunting, eating, crushing things, terrorizing villages, and occasionally losing battles and becoming bedrock. They symbolize harsh winters, starvation, giants of ice, and dangers of isolation. Stone giants are not subtle. They don't teach lessons gently. They are walking metaphors with fists made of geology. If you ever wondered why certain large boulders are shaped strangely, some traditions say, "Oh, that was a stone giant who made one bad life choice too many." What these monsters really taught, despite how terrifying they sound, these creatures weren't created for jump scares. They were educational tools, the most effective ones imaginable. A thunderbird teaches, respect storms, respect the sky, respect power. A Wendigo teaches, don't give in to greed, don't betray your community, don't lose your humanity under pressure. And Uktena teaches, don't chase power blindly, don't wander into dangerous places, don't antagonize giant serpents. Which honestly should go without saying. An underwater panther teaches, water is dangerous, pay attention, stop being reckless with your canoe. Stone giants teach, winter is deadly, prepare properly or the environment will body slam you. These were stories of survival, of ethics, of community, of respecting a world far bigger than yourself. And they were told in a tone that said, we don't need horror movies. We have nature, and nature is terrifying enough. Chapter 4, Shapeshifters, Spirit Walkers and the Supernatural Neighbors You Really Shouldn't Antagonize. Welcome to Chapter 4. The chapter where we finally tackle the beings who walk the dangerous middle line between human and spirit. The shapeshifters, the ritual specialists, the supernatural guardians, and the entities who make you rethink every rustling sound you've ever heard in the woods. This is the part of folklore where humanity stops being the main character and becomes the side quest in everyone else's story. These legends were serious, sacred, powerful. And yet, if we deliver them in this narrating style, they're also wildly dramatic. Think cosmic opera, but with more coyotes and fewer tax regulations. Let us proceed carefully. Very carefully. The Skinwalkers, the ultimate warning label for bad intentions. Before we continue, let's get something straight. Skinwalker legends belong specifically to the Navajo, Diné, people, and they're sacred, not pop horror entertainment. The Hollywood versions are 99% misinformation and 1% vibes. The real folklore describes them as dark practitioners who break spiritual law, medicine people who have turned to harmful power, shapeshifters who can take the form of animals, individuals who have lost their humanity through moral corruption. They are not random cryptids lurking behind gas stations. They are a spiritual warning about the consequences of choosing evil deliberately. Their stories function as ethical lessons, cultural boundaries, reminders of balance, and cosmic examples of maybe don't do that. And in traditional storytelling they are treated with seriousness, caution, respect, and absolutely zero desire to turn them into YouTube clickbait, so we will keep it respectful, but educational. Skinwalkers represent the misuse of sacred knowledge, the loss of one's identity, the spiritual contamination that follows harmful actions. In other words, they are the don't become the villain arc in every Navajo moral universe. Imagine someone breaking every rule, oath, and spiritual principle, and the result is a being who has traded humanity for power and isolation. A Skinwalker story is essentially the universe saying, Choices have consequences. You picked the wrong one. Now enjoy being a cursed shapeshifter forever. A very effective deterrent. The Changers, spiritual shapeshifters WHO, weren't here to ruin your day. While skinwalkers represent corruption, many tribes have positive shapeshifters. Beings who slip between forms as easily as you switch TV channels when someone walks into the room while you're watching something embarrassing. Some examples. Bear transformations, Haudenosaunee, Algonquin, more. These stories include humans who transform into bears after breaking taboos, touching sacred objects incorrectly, or accidentally offending supernatural entities. Sometimes it's a curse, sometimes it's a blessing. Depends on how much the narrator wants to traumatize children that evening. Otter people, Tlingit, Aleut, Inuit, Pacific Northwest, half human, half otter beings who lure people into the water. Not evil, just mischievous and impatient with humans' inability to swim properly. Wolf brothers, various plains nations. Humans raised by wolves are spiritually bonded with them, gaining senses or abilities. Not shapeshifting exactly, but spiritually equivalent to. Installing the Wolf DLC. Dear Women, Plains, Southeast. A cautionary shapeshifter spirit who tests men's behavior at night. Great for community moral enforcement. Terrible for anyone who thought flirting with mysterious forest women in the dark was a good idea. Positive shapeshifters are usually teachers, guardians, messengers, guides, or spiritual bouncers. They deal with you based on your actions. Nature's version of a moral algorithm. The little people, small in size, big in, stay out of our business, energy. Nearly every Native American culture has a version of little people. And before you imagine cute European gnomes wearing mushroom hats, know these beings are tiny, ancient, magically powerful, morally unpredictable, easily annoyed, and definitely not here for your nonsense. Think of them as the keyboard goblins of the forest. Small, mysterious, and ready to ruin your day if you touch their things. Common traits. They live in caves, hills, and forests. They can help or harm. They despise disrespect. They occasionally kidnap people. Gently. For moral lessons. They enjoy testing humans like spiritual quality control inspectors. Some stories say they teach lost children how to survive in the woods. Others say they drag rude adults into the underbrush for educational purposes. Either way, you learn your lesson. Different tribes have different names. Yunwi, Sunzdi, Cherokee, Mamegwesi, Ojibwe, Nimaragar, Shoshone, Hukwaji, Wampanoag, Watau, Lakota. Each group has its own personality. Some are helpful. Some are mischievous. Some are aggressively stabby. The key message across tribes is the same. Don't mess with the little people. They mess back. The spirit guardians. Creatures that will save you, if you don't annoy them first. Many Native American cultures include benevolent spiritual beings whose entire job is to help humans survive the wilderness. But here's the catch. They are benevolent, conditionally. You must respect the land, honor tradition, treat nature properly, listen to elders, and generally avoid acting like a raccoon with a caffeine addiction. If you fail at this, guardians become noticeably less helpful. Some examples. The Manitou, Algonquin nations. A vast spiritual force present in all things. Animals, trees, storms, lakes, humans. Not one being, but many. The spiritual Wi-Fi network that keeps the world running. The Kachinas, Hopi, Puebloan cultures. Spirit messengers who bring rain, fertility, blessings, and cosmic guidance. Also appear in ceremonies wearing masks so beautiful museums kept trying to steal them. The thunder beings, Lakota, Dakota. Powerful sky spirits who protect people from evil forces. Also send storms when annoyed. So basically, divine customer service with lightning. The corn woman, various southeastern tribes, a nurturing spirit of agriculture and food. A literal mother figure. Keeps everyone alive, until someone disrespects her generosity, forcing her to leave and watch you learn the value of starvation the old-fashioned way. These beings maintain balance, not comfort. Their role is not make humans happy. Their role is keep the world in order, teach lessons, manage natural consequence, censure harmony between all beings. Sometimes that means saving you. Sometimes that means letting you trip on a root so you learn to watch your step. Spiritual tough love. The shadow side of the supernatural. When things get spooky, some tribes also have spirits associated with sickness, sorrow, misfortune, imbalance, the darkness of winter nights, not as evil entities, but as natural forces that must be acknowledged, respected, and navigated. These include night stalkers, various Great Basin tribes, ghostwalkers, plains nations, shadow spirits, northwest coast, winter spirits, northern tribes. These beings aren't jump scare monsters. They're symbolic reminders that hardship is part of the natural cycle. Winter comes. Illness exists. Storms hit. Darkness falls. The stories teach people how to stay safe, stay together, stay moral, stay aware, and stay humble. It's less horror movie villain chasing you, and more cosmic seasonal depression with a personality. Why these stories exist, the real reason, not the spooky one. Shapeshifters and spirit walkers exist across tribes not because ancient people were afraid of the dark, but because these stories teach right from wrong, reinforce boundaries, explain the unexplainable, protect sacred knowledge, encourage balance with nature, warn against arrogance and cruelty, provide consequences for harmful behavior, and they do it with style. Instead of saying, be kind, respectful, humble, cooperative, and attentive, the stories say, if you disrespect the spirits, a tiny forest man will steal your pants and teach you a moral lesson behind a log. Or, treat nature badly and a sky deity will smite you with lightning so fast your descendants feel it. Or, don't break taboos or you'll turn into a bear and confuse everyone. Memorable. Effective. Entertaining. The perfect mythological trifecta. Now, if you haven't noticed by now, Coyote operates with the exact same energy as that one friend who insists on being the idea guy, even though every idea they've ever had has statistically resulted in property damage. And yet, somehow, Coyote remains one of the most important figures in Native American mythology. He's not just comic relief. He's a cosmic reminder that intelligence doesn't always mean wisdom, and wisdom doesn't always mean not being a complete idiot. But perhaps the real reason Coyote appears everywhere, across tribes, regions, languages, is because he embodies something humanity understands universally. The instinct to make life entertaining even when it definitely shouldn't be. Take, for example, the story where Coyote decides he wants to cross a river without getting wet. An admirable goal. A relatable goal. Except, instead of doing something simple, like building a raft, or, waiting until summer, Coyote convinces rocks to line up in the water so he can hop across them. And for a brief, glorious moment, he invents the first version of stepping stones. This is innovation. This is genius. This is Coyote actually doing something right. Until, halfway across, he decides to start bragging about how smart he is. Because if Coyote has one fatal flaw, it's the compulsive need to monologue like a supervillain before the plan is actually finished. And the river, who apparently had no patience for his TED Talk, responds by rising just high enough to sweep him away like a furry, egotistical leaf. If you're noticing a pattern, yes. Coyote is basically the universe rewarding creativity, then slapping the inventor for talking too much about it. A timeless lesson indeed. But let's move to another favorite, the coyote who tries to steal fire. In many traditions, fire originally belonged only to the fire beings, powerful spirits who guarded it like the world's most aggressive Wakamiti. And humanity, at this stage of existence, had about the same relationship with fire that toddlers have with forbidden cookies. They wanted it desperately, but everyone agreed it would end in screaming. Coyote, being the unofficial CEO of Questionable Decisions Incorporated, volunteers to go steal it. And listen. Say what you want about him, but he pulls it off. Sort of. He sneaks in, grabs the fire, books it out of there, and manages to set off a world record relay race as he hands the flame off to other animals fleeing behind him. Frogs, birds, even squirrels. Each taking turns keeping the flame alive while the fire beings chase them down like they're trying to retrieve a package marked, "Signature required." The end result? Humans get fire. Coyote gets singed. And the fire beings get the satisfaction of knowing they terrified an entire generation of woodland creatures. This is the type of story that, in any other mythology, would be told with noble heroes, glowing symbolism, and orchestral soundtracks. But in Native American folklore? Your Prometheus is a trickster dog person who trips over himself and still accidentally invents civilization. If that doesn't capture the human condition, nothing does. Now, Coyote's antics might seem purely comedic, but they often hide deeper moral lessons. Sometimes the lesson is noble, like, don't be selfish. Sometimes it's philosophical, like, knowledge comes with consequences. And sometimes the lesson is just, for the love of all that is holy, stop showing off. But let's be fair. Coyote isn't always the fool. In many traditions, he's the creator, shaping the world, naming the animals, forming the landscape. Which means that, on a cosmic scale, the universe was partially designed by a being who routinely walks into danger like it's part of his cardio routine. If that doesn't explain a lot about life's general chaos, I don't know what does. Alright, buckle up, we're about to end chapter 1 soon. But we're not done with Coyote just yet. Because next, Coyote tries to cheat death, and shockingly, the results are perfectly on brand. So, death. That inevitable, inescapable, and extremely boring universal event that nobody enjoys discussing unless you're a cosmic trickster with a flair for drama. Enter Coyote, who, like most tricksters, looks at death the same way most of us look at a tax form. With a combination of fear, confusion, and a strong desire to find a loophole. In one classic tale, Coyote dies. And yes, this happens a lot. He dies from stupidity, overeating, getting into fights with spirits, or simply walking through life with the confidence of a man wearing socks on a freshly waxed floor. But dying is not the end for him. Oh no, Coyote has a knack for bending rules that mortals accept as absolute. Death, for example. He wanders into the afterlife, argues with the spirits in charge, negotiates like a used car salesman who also happens to be a dog with fur, and manages to return to the living. Sometimes he comes back with lessons, sometimes with scars, and sometimes with the fiery lesson that, yes, stepping on frozen rivers is still a bad idea. It's like life gives him a pop quiz, he fails spectacularly, and yet somehow still passes the course because he is Coyote. These stories do more than entertain. They teach patience, resilience, and the cosmic understanding that life is absurd. That sometimes, rules are flexible, and humor is essential. That mistakes are inevitable, and also hilarious if you survive them. Moral of Chapter 1: Humans aren't the center of the universe. The world existed long before we showed up, and it has a tendency to remind you of this every few seconds. Coyote is everyone you know who ruins plans but somehow makes life better. A paradox wrapped in fur. Chaos is natural, and humor is survival. Laughing at your own mistakes might not prevent the flood, fire, or angry spirit from showing up, but it helps you endure it. Everything has meaning, even disasters. Mountains exist because of tricksters, fire exists because someone stole it, and rivers exist because someone tripped. And with that, we conclude Chapter 1. The beginnings, the tricksters, and the lessons hidden in chaos. Next up, Chapter 2, where we dive deeper into the pantheon of tricksters, reveal their most absurd and deadly escapades, and see just how far the universe will go to make sure humans learn something, whether they like it or not. Welcome to Chapter 2. Tricksters. The universe's personal comedy hour. If Chapter 1 introduced you to the Chaos Architects, Coyote, Raven, Nanabajo, Chapter 2 shows just how far they're willing to go to make humans look ridiculous while accidentally improving the world. Think of them as cosmic interns with no supervision, unlimited power, and a questionable moral compass. Now, let's break it down. Coyote. Master of unintentional innovation. You thought Coyote's antics were over? Huh. They're just getting started. Consider the story of Coyote and the stars. Apparently, humans were bored. They had darkness at night, no celestial bodies, and an overwhelming urge to get lost after sundown. Enter Coyote, who decides the night sky would be improved if we had stars. But Coyote isn't methodical. He doesn't measure, plan, or ask the other spirits for permission. No, he just throws handfuls of stars into the sky like a toddler sprinkling glitter over an unfinished school project. The result? Constellations. Sometimes symmetrical, sometimes chaotic, sometimes, wait, is that a bear or just a blob? Coyote also accidentally invents shooting stars, a delightful byproduct of poor aim. Moral of the story: chaos leads to beauty. And occasionally minor cosmic confusion. Raven. Cosmic hacker with attitude. Raven, mostly in Pacific Northwest legends, is the universe's sneaky IT department. He doesn't just create, he steals, hacks, and manipulates. Take the story of the stolen sun. Humans were cold. Darkness was relentless. Raven decides, you know what? I'm gonna fix this. He doesn't politely request permission. He shape-shifts, sneaks into a hidden sky cache, and absconds with the sun, hiding it in a conveniently shaped clamshell. Humans are temporarily thrilled but also very confused. How do you unclamshell a sun? They figure it out. Eventually. This story is pure Raven energy. Problem identified, right pointing arrow, creative but reckless solution applied, right pointing arrow, minor chaos ensues, right pointing arrow, humans benefit. Raven gets bragging rights. If Coyote is improvisational chaos, Raven is strategic chaos. He's the type of being who would hack your Wi-Fi just to teach you a lesson about gratitude. Nanabajo. The multi-role trickster Nanabajo, Ojibwe, is like the ultimate Swiss Army knife of folklore. Hero, trickster, creator, and absolute disaster magnet. Some highlights. Creation of animals. Nanabajo decides to fill the world with creatures. Some animals are useful, some are dangerous, some exist only to mock humans. Weather control. He messes with seasons, storms, and the wind. And yes, he does it while simultaneously trying to nap, which always ends poorly. Teaching through mistakes. Nanabajo's blunders often serve as lessons. For example, he once overfed a village with corn, leading to mild chaos. Lesson. Moderation exists for a reason. Nanabajo is the trickster you love to watch fail but secretly admire for having the courage to even try. Tricksters and humor. Why it matters now, you may be thinking, sure, they're chaotic, but why all the jokes? Humor is essential. Tricksters teach through entertaining failure. Instead of moralizing, they demonstrate consequences in ways humans can remember. For example, Coyote burns his tail, don't be arrogant. Raven hides the sun. Fix problems, but be clever. Nanabajo trips over his own magic, pay attention to details. And because these stories are entertaining, the lessons stick. A frightened child remembers Coyote's tailfire far better than a lecture about humility. Tricksters and mortality. The funny side of death. Another key trickster theme is mortality. Many tales involve tricksters teasing, cheating, or interacting with death itself. For example, Coyote dies repeatedly, only to return and continue being a disaster magnet. Raven faces cosmic consequences for stealing celestial objects, yet somehow survives every punishment. Nanabajo experiences repeated near-death events, which serve as life lessons, both for him and the humans observing. These stories emphasize life is unpredictable. Mistakes are inevitable. Humor makes survival possible. Think of tricksters as your personal life coaches, if your life coach also had a flair for chaos and literally could steal the sun. Alright, buckle in. Chapter 2, Part 2 is where things get truly ridiculous. You've met Coyote, Raven, and Nanabajo, but what happens when these tricksters team up? Or when their blunders ripple through the universe like a cosmic prank gone wrong? You're about to find out. Coyote vs. the Fire Spirits. A masterclass in bad decision making. We already know Coyote stole fire, but let's go deeper. Picture this. Coyote has the fire. Humans are thrilled. The world is improving. And then Coyote decides he needs to show off by carrying the fire across the forest without burning anything. This involves leaping over logs, dodging streams, yelling at birds for interfering with progress. Predictably, the fire spreads. Trees catch fire. Small animals panic. And Coyote, in full, heroic disaster mode, accidentally creates the first version of wildfire management. Eventually, the fire spirits arrive, furious. But here's the genius part. Coyote convinces them he meant well, spins the story so humans can keep the fire, and manages to survive. Lesson? Leadership is risky. Bragging during a mission is dangerous. Sometimes chaos does result in progress. Raven and the Sun. Rewriting cosmic rules. Let's revisit Raven. Because one story is not enough to illustrate his chaotic brilliance. The sun had been hoarded by the Sky Chief. Humans were cold. Raven decides, yes, I'll liberate the sun, because ethics. But again, Raven is clever and dramatic. He shape-shifts into a small child, beguiles the Sky Chief, steals the sun, and then literally throws it across the sky. Humans get daylight. Birds get slightly annoyed as the sun clips trees. And Raven? Raven gloats from the treetops like a feathered CEO who just patented electricity. This is important because it demonstrates tricksters solve real problems. Their methods are absurd. The results are sometimes miraculous, sometimes catastrophic, and always memorable. It's the teaching through chaos principle in action. Nanabajo and the cosmic race. In one epic tale, Nanabajo and other tricksters engage in what historians call the cosmic race. Picture a relay race with impossible terrain, supernatural obstacles, and occasional existential commentary from watching spirits. Nanabajo runs, trips, cheats, steals magical objects from opponents, and somehow wins. Why? Because his failure is his strategy. By flopping and improvising, he shows that cleverness, adaptability, and audacity matter more than brute force. This story also teaches humans about creative problem solving, the consequences of overconfidence, the value of observation, and, most importantly, how hilarious it can be when a cosmic rabbit man sabotages himself and everyone around him. The tricksters. Moral math. Trickster stories have what I like to call moral math. Step 1. Human needs right pointing arrow. Step 2. Trickster interferes, right pointing arrow. Step 3. Chaos ensues, right pointing arrow. Step 4. Humans accidentally learn life lesson, right pointing arrow. Step 5. Trickster gloats, right pointing arrow. Step 6. Universe slightly rebalances. Repeat indefinitely. This formula explains why people don't starve. Coyote brought fire. People see daylight. Raven stole the sun. People survive natural disasters. Nanabajo teaches adaptability. And yet, humans are still human. They repeat mistakes. They misbehave. They underestimate chaos. Which, let's be honest, is perfectly documented in every trickster story ever told. Tricksters and humor. The final punchline: why humor? Because it works. Humans remember funny mistakes. Lessons embedded in absurdity stick. Laughter creates communal bonds. Chaos becomes educational. Tricksters weren't just entertainment. They were pedagogical anarchists, showing humans the line between foolishness and wisdom, danger and survival, comedy and tragedy. And let's face it, if you're going to survive a continent filled with giant serpents, sky monsters, ice-coated giants, and angry spirits, you'd better develop a sense of humor. Welcome to Chapter 3. The great beasts and creatures you really don't want to meet in the woods. If Chapter 2 taught you that tricksters make life messy, Chapter 3 will remind you why sometimes life itself is messy. Because beyond Coyote, Raven, and Nanabajo, the world is full of creatures that are terrifying, ridiculous, and morally instructive, sometimes all at once. These beings were educational monsters, designed to keep humans safe, ethical, and humble, often using fear, awe, or sheer improbable size. Grab your metaphorical bug spray. Things are about to get real. The Wendigo. Please don't eat each other, okay? The Wendigo is the monster everyone immediately associates with cannibalism. Algonquin-speaking tribes, like the Ojibwe and Cree, told these stories to enforce community ethics during long winters. Characteristics. Humanoid but skeletal and emaciated, hungers endlessly, growing larger with every bite. Spirit of greed, starvation, and moral collapse. Infectious. Exposure can cause humans to become Wendigos. Essentially, it's a monster designed by the universe to keep humans from starving each other. Imagine. You're snowed in, starving, and the only way to survive is to commit a terrible act. The Wendigo legend pops up like Grandma's moral elbow. No, fun fact. The Wendigo is terrifying not just because it's big and hungry, but because it represents humanity at its worst. It's the monster that says, "Don't let desperation make you a monster yourself." Thunderbirds. Nature's unpaid sky interns. Thunderbirds are massive supernatural birds, mostly from Pacific Northwest legends. Their wingspans were enormous. Their thunderclaps could kill. Their lightning bolts? Well, let's just say you wouldn't survive if you stood under one. Roles. Maintain balance, protect humans from supernatural threats, enforce cosmic justice, occasionally crush an annoying raccoon. For good measure, humans didn't argue with thunderbirds. They respected them. Because if you've ever faced a storm that feels personal, you understand why a giant bird with attitude is the original form of weather accountability. Uktena, the giant horned serpent. WHO clearly needed a hobby. Cherokee mythology tells of Uktena, a serpent so massive it could circle mountains, venomous enough to kill villages, and sporting a gemstone in its forehead. Questions this raises. How did it acquire the gemstone? Did it polish it itself? Can humans negotiate with Uktena like a dragon in D&D? Legendary humans often sought the gemstone for power. Legendary failure usually ensued. Uktena embodies the dangers of greed and overconfidence, and maybe some supernatural fashion sense. The underwater panther. Nature's no swimming sign. Mishipeshu, the underwater panther, is terrifying in name and appearance. Imagine. A panther but aquatic with horns, scales, aggressive territorial tendencies. Purpose. Guard sacred lakes and rivers. Punish disrespect. Cause drowning when necessary. Lesson? Respect water. Respect nature. And never underestimate horned aquatic cats. Stone giants. When rocks fight back, many northeastern nations tell of stone-covered giants, huge, powerful, and literally walking mountains. Characteristics. Tall as trees, armored in stone, interested primarily in crushing things. These beings weren't just scary. They symbolized harsh winters, isolation, survival challenges. Also, let's be honest, they're a good excuse to explain random boulders. Oh, that one? Stone giant stomped here. Bad day. Monsters as educational tools. All these creatures served a dual purpose, to terrify and to teach. Wendigo. Morality in survival. Thunderbird. Respect the natural order. Uktena. Greed kills underwater panther. Obey the waterstone giants. Respect winter and wilderness. These stories are terrifying, absurd, and memorable, ensuring humans learned lessons even if they didn't want to. Welcome back. In Chapter 3, Part 2, we continue our journey into the wilderness of the absurd, the terrifying, and the morally instructive. If you thought Wendigos, Thunderbirds, Uktena, and underwater panthers were wild, buckle up. The folklore gets even more creative. Here, the supernatural isn't subtle. It's theatrical. It's punitive. It's also very, very entertaining. The sky serpents. Cosmic rivers in the air. Some Native American traditions describe immense serpents that live in the skies, often tied to storms, wind, or celestial events. Features. Shape-shifting, enormous, and terrifying. Controls weather. Often unpredictably symbolizes the forces of nature humans can't control. Why are they important? Sky serpents teach humility. They enforce respect for the environment. They remind humans. No amount of cleverness or trickery will allow you to command the weather. Basically, these serpents are nature's ultimate "do not touch" signs. The water spirits. Nurturing and vindictive across North America, spirits inhabit rivers, lakes, and springs. These beings are ambivalent. Helpful if humans respect the water, punitive if humans pollute, overfish, or otherwise misbehave. Famous examples. Manitou, Algonquin. The spirit that dwells in everything, including water panthers. Fierce guardians of lakes. Stories often involve humans disrespecting sacred water, the spirit responding with floods, storms, or disappearances. Moral lesson learned. Often painfully lesson. Water isn't just a resource, it's a relationship. The night spirits. Cosmic pest control. Not all spirits are huge or dramatic. Some exist to remind humans that darkness is dangerous. Night stalkers, Great Basin. Ghostwalkers, Plains Nations. Shadow spirits, Northwest Coast. Purpose. Warn humans to be cautious at night. Reinforce respect for spiritual boundaries. Encourage sleep schedules, because apparently folklore also cared about circadian rhythms. Key point. Even in a world full of magical beasts, ordinary caution can save your life. Elemental guardians. The cosmic bouncers. Many stories feature guardians associated with elements. Fire spirits, earth guardians, sky beings, wind entities. They serve two roles. Maintain balance in the natural world, correct human misbehavior. Example. A wind spirit overturns canoes for disrespecting the river. A fire spirit punishes careless villagers. An earth guardian creates sinkholes when forests are cut. These tales are ancient environmental enforcement policies with dramatic flair. The absurdity and teaching of it all. Why are so many creatures ridiculous, overpowered, or theatrical? Memorability. Humans remember absurd things. Moral reinforcement. Humor plus fear equals lessons. Stick. Community cohesion. Stories told around fires create shared cultural knowledge. In short, the stories aren't just entertainment. They are education, social control, and cosmic comedy rolled into one. Even death, disaster, or catastrophe is funny in hindsight, if you survive to tell the story. And tricksters? They ensure that the lessons come with flair. Welcome to Chapter 4. Shapeshifters, Spirit Walkers, and the Supernatural Neighbors You Don't Want to Annoy. By now, you've met Coyote, Raven, Nanabajo, and a variety of giant, terrifying monsters. But the folklore doesn't stop there. Native American mythologies are full of beings that walk the line between human and spirit, the ones who make you feel small, humble, and occasionally terrified that the forest is watching you. These are the entities who don't just punish or prank humans, they teach, guide, and occasionally rearrange reality for your moral benefit. Let's dive in. Skinwalkers. The ultimate, don't break the rules. Example: skinwalkers come from Navajo, Diné, tradition. They are not your run-of-the-mill shapeshifters. These beings are Humans who have broken sacred laws capable of transforming into animals extremely dangerous and morally corrupt. Key point. Skinwalkers are warnings about abusing spiritual power. They aren't horror movie fodder. They're cautionary tales with teeth and claws. Humans who hear these stories learn. Respect sacred laws, maintain personal integrity, avoid curiosity that crosses moral boundaries. In other words, skinwalkers are spiritual deterrents disguised as shapeshifters, which is both terrifying and efficient. Positive shapeshifters. Helpers in disguise. Not all shapeshifters are evil. Some exist to guide, protect, or test humans. Bear transformations. Humans transform into bears after breaking taboos or offending spirits. Can be a curse or a lesson. Symbolizes strength, responsibility, and respect for the natural world. Otter people, Pacific Northwest, half human, half otter, mischievous but not malicious. Teach humans lessons about water and survival. Deer women, Plains, Southeast, appear to test moral behavior, often targeting men who behave recklessly. Reminder. The forest has rules, and flattery won't save you. Positive shapeshifters embody guidance, moral reinforcement, cosmic quality control. The little people, small but deadly. Nearly every tribe features little people, tiny beings with massive moral authority. Traits. Inhabit hills, forests, and caves. Magically powerful, easily angered by disrespect. Examples: Yunwi Sunzdi, Cherokee, Mamegwesi, Ojibwe, Pukwaji, Wampanoag. These tiny beings enforce rules, teach lessons, and occasionally kidnap humans for moral correction. They are living reminders that size does not equal influence, and annoyance has consequences. Spirit guardians. Nature's cosmic enforcers. Many legends feature benevolent entities maintaining natural and social order. Manitou, Algonquin. Omnipresent spirits inhabiting all things. Kachinas, Hopi, Pueblo. Ceremonial messengers who bring rain and blessings. Thunder beings, Lakota, Dakota. Sky spirits enforcing moral and natural law. Corn woman, Southeast, nurtures humans and crops, punishes disrespect. Key takeaway. These guardians enforce balance. They aren't here to pamper humans. They correct mistakes, reward respect, and enforce cosmic consequences. The shadow side. When nature teaches the hard way, some spirits are less nurturing. They embody illness, misfortune, seasonal hardships, the inevitability of mortality. Examples: night stalkers, plains, winter spirits, northern tribes, shadow entities, northwest coast. These aren't evil for fun. They are natural consequences personified, a way to communicate respect for the unpredictable forces of the world. Why it works. Education through absurdity. The common thread. Humor plus absurdity plus fear equals memorable lessons. Shapeshifters, spirit walkers, and guardians enforce morality creatively. Stories ensure respect for people, animals, and nature. In short, you learn better when the universe can slap you, scare you, and make you laugh at the same time. Welcome back to Chapter 4, Part 2. Heroes, warriors, and the epic messes they solve, sometimes by accident. We've spent a lot of time on tricksters, monsters, and spirits. Now it's time to meet the humans, or semi-humans, who actually try to make sense of this chaotic universe. Sometimes they succeed. Sometimes they fail spectacularly. And sometimes their failure is exactly what saves the day. The heroic arc. What makes a hero in folklore? In Native American myths, heroes are often resourceful, not invincible, clever, sometimes accidental, closely tied to spiritual forces responsible for maintaining balance. Unlike typical Western heroes, these figures don't always triumph because they're strong or moral. They often triumph because they adapt to chaos, negotiate with spirits, or survive their own stupidity. Example: a hero might outwit a monster by exploiting its overconfidence, receive supernatural help after showing respect, make mistakes that teach the community a valuable lesson. In other words, heroism is often survival plus improvisation plus sheer dumb luck. Heroic figures and their epic fails. Hiawatha, Iroquois, legendary peacemaker worked tirelessly to unite warring tribes, created the foundation for the Iroquois Confederacy. The funny part: many versions of his story involve awkward negotiations, misunderstandings, and moments where it's unclear if he's a genius or just really lucky. But the end result? Peace. Mostly. Until someone argues about hunting rights, naturally. Raven as hero. Yes, Raven can be a trickster and a hero simultaneously. Stole the sun to give humans light, brought water and salmon, sometimes ended up causing more chaos than he solved. Lesson: heroes are not always morally perfect. They are often functionally effective. The hero who outsmarts monsters. Many stories feature humans who outwit Wendigos, Uktena, or spirit guardians. Often involves clever traps, ritual knowledge, or talking animals. Sometimes the monster literally dies of confusion. Key point: brains greater than brawn, and improvisation is essential in a universe that actively wants you to fail. Epic tales of lessons learned the hard way. These epic stories often follow a pattern. Human encounters chaos, monster, trickster, or natural disaster. Human tries a direct solution. Usually fails spectacularly. Tricksters or spirits intervene. Intentionally or accidentally. Humans improvise. Sometimes clumsily, sometimes brilliantly. Universe corrects itself. Humans survive. Lessons learned. Monsters satisfied. Notice the trend. Even in the most dramatic stories, there's humor embedded in danger. Life-threatening situations are often teaching moments disguised as slapstick tragedy. The cosmic lessons of heroism. Heroic tales teach respect for nature, spirits, and community, resourcefulness, adaptability, and clever thinking. Humor in the face of absurdity, that even great heroes can fail and still succeed. For example, outsmarting a Wendigo requires observation and cunning. Negotiating with Raven requires patience and humor. Surviving Uktena requires courage and sometimes running very, very fast. Heroes in these stories don't just fight monsters. They navigate a universe that is absurd, morally complex, and often hilarious. And this is why their tales endure. They are educational, entertaining, and extremely memorable. Welcome to the final chapter. Lessons, absurdity, and how to survive a universe full of tricksters, monsters, and shape-shifting disaster magnets. By now, you've seen Coyote's improvisational chaos, Raven's dramatic cosmic heists, Nanabajo's accidental heroics, Wendigos, Uktena, thunderbirds, and other creatures designed to ruin your day, spirit walkers, shapeshifters, and tiny people with very high standards. What's left? Time to step back, take a deep breath, and ask the question: why did Native American peoples tell these stories in the first place? Spoiler alert: it wasn't for pure entertainment, but they were surprisingly good at it. The purpose behind the chaos. The legends served several overlapping functions. Moral education: don't steal fire, or Coyote will singe your tail. Respect the water, or Mishipeshu will ruin your canoe. Avoid greed, or Uktena will remind you why gemstones aren't toys. Environmental awareness: creatures enforce balance in forests, rivers, and skies. Humans learn to live sustainably and harmoniously. Community cohesion: stories were shared around fires. Laughter and shared fear brought people together. Lessons became collective memory. Survival through absurdity: humor teaches resilience, chaos teaches adaptability. Mistakes are inevitable, and memorable. Absurdity is a survival strategy. Here's the genius: humans learn best when stories surprise, frighten, or amuse them. Coyote's epic fails teach caution. Raven's bold thefts teach creativity. Wendigos and Uktena teach respect for limits. Little people and spirit guardians teach humility. All of it works because the universe is messy and arbitrary. The myths reflect that messiness, so humans could navigate life without dying in the woods, offending the spirits, or looking foolish while trying. It's not just teaching through fear. It's teaching through absurdity, humor, drama, and memorable chaos. Humans in the cosmic machine. In Native American folklore, humans are not the central stars. They are students, observers, actors constrained by chaos, sometimes survivors of improbable events. Life, in this view, is unexpected, often dangerous, infuriatingly complicated, also hilarious if you survive it. In the myths, they are a survival guide disguised as absurdity and entertainment. The final moral, if you can call it that, after hundreds of stories, thousands of years, and countless versions told around campfires, the central message becomes: respect life, nature, and the unseen forces adapt quickly. Learn from mistakes. Especially your own humor is essential and chaos is unavoidable. Embrace it essentially. Life will ruin your plans, but if you survive, you'll laugh, learn, and maybe become a minor legend yourself. Whether it's a trickster stealing the sun, a Wendigo chasing you in winter, or a tiny magical being stealing your socks, the lessons are consistent. Life is absurd. Learn fast, respect deeply, and laugh at your failures, because someone, somewhere, is narrating it with cosmic sarcasm. Chapter 5 complete. And with that, the epic journey through Native American folklore, mythical creatures, tricksters, and cosmic chaos comes to a close. You now have 5 full chapters of absurdity, humor, and sarcasm in the style of Sleepless Historian educational content grounded in traditional myths. Congratulations! You survived the stories, the monsters, and the chaos.